Hello there. Have the actions of both Putin and NATO backed President Zelensky of Ukraine into a corner? There's been miles of column inches on whether or not NATO has boxed Putin into a corner, with his only way out now being to use chemicals, biologics or tactical nukes, or even go the whole hog with his strategic stockpile. But no one's asking if the combination of NATO and Russian actions, as well as of all the Western talk of supporting Ukraine, have left Zelensky with no choice but to go to the bitter end. Forget the shutting down of media outlets that criticise him, his actions in the Don Basin and the jailing of political opposition. Zelensky is now hailed across the free world as a hero. He has been clapped and cheered by parliaments, politicians and all manner of the powerful, because he bravely stayed in Kyiv when it would have been so easy for him to leave for somewhere safe and set up a government in exile. He has managed to whip up almost worldwide approval and near adoration for both him and his people. The brave and plucky Ukrainians taking on the might of Putin's Russia and seemingly bringing that might to a stall as Western money and weapons pour in. Except for the MiG-29s, of course, that I talked about in an earlier video. But Zelensky now has the pressure of the world and of his country on him to perform and save the day. While the Russian artillery is said to be pounding his cities to dust. What would it take now for Zelensky to call it a day? No NATO air cover, no NATO boots on Ukrainian soil, but plenty of Russian boots and plenty of Russian artillery shells. Has the West managed to put Zelensky into the corner of do or die, potentially taking the whole country and millions of lives with him? What we may be seeing is Ukraine acting as a sealed crucible for World War III to be played out in, while we test our tactics and weapons and coldly evaluate their effectiveness, watching Ukraine bleed out in the process, testing Putin's and Russian resolve as we in turn pound their economy with sanctions. And if Russia wins, will we see huge Stalin-style population relocations, with refugees unable to return to any part of Ukraine under Russian control, and much of the Ukraine-speaking population spread out in Russia and Belarus and wider Europe, while Russians are moved in to consolidate Ukraine as true Russian territory? Is that why the so-called humanitarian routes Putin offered only led to Belarus or Russia itself, for refugees to leave by, but never to return home? And if the West prevails and keeps at least a sizable chunk of Ukraine as an independent but neutral state, who will rebuild it, and at what cost, and to who? Be in no doubt there will already be government departments talking to corporations on their future plans for Ukraine, covering a multitude of different scenarios, with taxpayers picking up the tab, no doubt. And I'm left wondering if Zelensky himself features in any of those plans. His less than democratic past might catch up with him and may be too much for the West and his anti-Russian stance too much for the other side. So I'm wondering if regime change is in the air, whatever happens. Remember, we are very good at clapping in support today and discarding without a thought tomorrow.